Thank you for listening to this worship podcast of St. Andrew Lutheran Church. We hope this recording provides you with a moment of God's grace wherever this finds you. Know that you're welcome to join us in person for worship in Eden Prairie on Sunday mornings at 9 or 10:30. And also know that any contribution you make will bolster St. Andrew's ministry and outreach, including our podcasting directly to you. You can do so online. Welcome and God's blessings to you. Please be seated. The reading this evening comes from the book of Romans, the 12th chapter. Let love be genuine, hate what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with mutual affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Do not lag in zeal, be ardent in spirit, and serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope, be patient in affliction, persevere in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints, and pursue hospitality to strangers. Here ends our reading.
Well, good evening. Lent is this time that we set aside those 40 days, excluding Sundays, as we lead up to Easter to kind of contemplate our humanity and in the ways that we're imperfect, where there is suffering and sin in the world. But it's also a time for me to think about the ways in which God's goodness is in my life. So these days, yes, are set aside as we think about Jesus turning towards Jerusalem as he enters Jerusalem for the last time. But it also makes me think often about how God moves and breathes in my life. And so the series that we're doing, Stories of Love, is yes, there is imperfection in humanity, but there's a whole lot of love. A wonderful woman named Bev was in my office today and reminded me that there's more stories of love in this world than there are other stories, which I agree with. And there's all kinds of love, right? There's the love of friends, the love of family, there's romantic love, there's agape love in service to others. So I want to share a story tonight about an experience I had with love that changed my life. So, as a mom, you love your children unconditionally and you find great joy in watching them become who they are and see what they're passionate about and what they love until it takes them away from you. So, my middle daughter, Anna, when she was a senior in college, came to us and said, I want to take a gap year before I start working. I want to do something. I want to see the world. I want to do some kind of service. So she applied to be a young adult in global mission through the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. And she was accepted into the program and she was placed in Bethlehem. And there she was assigned to work in a school for kindergarten through high schoolers where she would work there. And then she was a volunteer at Christmas Lutheran Church in Bethlehem. And so all was great until we dropped her off at the airport. And I can still see her with this giant backpack on her back and one big suitcase. And she was getting on that airplane and leaving us and going to an unknown place to unknown people where she was encouraged to not use her phone and ask people for questions and get to know people's stories. And as she hugged us goodbye, I can still remember holding it together until she got through security and then just weeping and weeping. When she arrived in Bethlehem, she was greeted by her country coordinators, Pastor Gabby and Pastor Megan Ilabuni, who were serving there. And then she was placed to live with her family, Nazreen and Tony Nasser. Tony was the principal of the school she was serving, and Nazreen was his wife and worked at Bethlehem Bible College. We were encouraged not to reach out to her so she wouldn't get too homesick. So I reveled when the phone calls finally start to come in, and I heard about being with her kindergartners and teaching them English. And I heard about the woman at the corner grocery store that taught her how to grocery shop because everything was new, right? Took the time to teach her how to shop. I heard about the taxi cab driver who took care of her the whole time he was over there and said, "If you ever need safe travel, I'm the one to call," and gave her his own cell phone number to call any time of the day or night. And I heard about all the ways that she was eating marvelous food and she was going into the homes of people and babysitting the kids in her family. Tony and Nazreen had 5 children of their own. And when she entered that household, she was placed in the apartment above them and they lived below. And slowly I could tell she was being immersed in Palestinian life and into this Palestinian family, and they were becoming her family. So through all that, she also learned the difficult things. When you live in Bethlehem, you're living in what's part of the world that lives under occupation. So every time Anna had to go to Jerusalem, she would get on a bus and travel through the checkpoints to go to Jerusalem. You see, in Bethlehem, most Palestinians cannot travel freely, so you get on a bus that only Palestinians can ride on, and then you get off the bus at the checkpoint. All of your identification is checked, and then if you're lucky, you can get back on the bus and go on to Jerusalem. So it's only 9 miles, but sometimes it can take an hour and a half to travel those 9 miles depending on the day. So Anna's family, even though they were Palestinian Christians, could not travel the 9 miles to the holy city to see where Jesus had his last supper, where he was crucified, died, and buried, and where he rose from the dead. But they told those stories, but they couldn't travel there. So Anna lived that hardship too. And in all of these things, this was becoming a place that she called home. And she loved it there. And she loved it there. And one day she was working in her school in Bethlehem, and her country coordinator entered the school and said, "We need to leave now." This was the time of COVID. And he came to her and said, "You need to leave the school now. We need to go to Nizreen and Tony's home. You need to take and pack a small bag. You can't bring all of your things. The checkpoints are closing. We need to get through the checkpoints." So she got into Gabby's car, went to the home, grabbed a duffel bag size of her personal items and a few clothes, and got through the checkpoints, fortunately, in time before they closed. And at this point, they thought it was only going to be 2 weeks. Remember that? A 2 week shutdown? So they were in Jerusalem and they were living in an apartment for 2 weeks, her and the few other women that she traveled with. And while they were there, they received the news that indeed this was not going to be a 2 week thing. And Gabby knocked on the door of where they were staying. And again, with the same urgency, he said, "You need to grab your things. The airport is closing. And if I don't take you to the airport now, you may not get out of the country and I may not get home to my family." So, 5 young women all got in his car with their things and they drove as fast as they could to the airport. Fortunately, made it through the checkpoints. Gabby's one of the few Palestinian people that has dual citizenship as both a Palestinian and an Israeli, and was able to get through the checkpoints. He dropped them off and left, and fortunately, he was able to return to his family safely. And the girls entered the airport and called all their parents, of which we were all harried and concerned because we knew that they might not get through the checkpoints, and what does this mean for our children, right? So, they got into the airport, they got onto those airplanes, and the whole airport shut down less than 2 hours later. And when she came and arrived in her house, I was greeted by a young woman whose life had changed. And she began to sob because she walked into our door not being able to say goodbye to the family that she loved. She left Bethlehem without saying goodbye to Nazreen or Tony or her 5 Palestinian brothers and sisters that she had got to know. She didn't say goodbye to the woman who helped her grocery shop or the cab driver or all of her members at Christmas Lutheran Church, where she volunteered and met a whole community of people. She wasn't able to walk by the church where Jesus is known to be born, that she walked by every single day. And her world ended. And so we accepted her into the house. And here's the thing. She was not ever able to get her items from Bethlehem. They weren't able to get her items when she left Bethlehem originally. Except here's what we discovered. She had been home for a couple of weeks and the doorbell rang and it was the UPS man with a huge box. Unbeknownst to Anna, her family had packed up all of her things in her room and all of her items, and they had placed gifts in the suitcase and written love letters to her and placed them in the suitcase. And then they took great risk. They had a family friend who was a Palestinian police officer who had the ability to go through the checkpoints, and they smuggled that suitcase in his trunk. And he drove through the checkpoints, and they were able to get it all the way to Tel Aviv to get it shipped out to our house. So I want to show you a picture of these people that she was with. This is just a few people. This is Nazreen. This is her mom. That's Bashira. That was her brother. He's an incredible young man. That's Natalie, her other sister. There's 3 other siblings. So these people took care of her. So we told Anna when she got back, someday we will go back and when we can and see them. So in 2023, just a few weeks before St. Andrew took their trip there, I traveled with my husband and my daughter back to Palestine, and we arrived, took the train from Jerusalem as far as we could go, and then entered the West Bank. And I'll never forget the day that we got up early. We lived with Anna's good friend Maddie on the West Bank, and we stayed there several weeks. We walked into the home that she had lived in, that she did not have the opportunity to say goodbye to any of the people there. And we knocked on the door, and the door opened, and Bashira opened the door. Anna! And then Nazreen walked into the living room and spotted Anna and began speaking Arabic that I did not understand, but I did see is Nazreen throw her arms around my daughter, and the thing I did understand was, "My Anna, my Anna, my Anna, my Anna." And they both stood in the middle of that room and wept. And what I encountered that day is in what Pastor Peter read earlier in the Bible verse: contribute to the needs of the saints, pursue hospitality of strangers. My daughter entered this Palestinian family as a stranger. A stranger. 2 different worlds. They took care of her. They fed her. When she's sick, they made her ginger and peppermint tea. They shopped with her. They sang with her. They went to church with her. And they made sure she was taken care of. And I witnessed a mother take care of a child that was not hers and yet treated her as her very own daughter. And our 2 families live across the oceans from each other. We're from different ethnicities, but we do share a Christian faith that compels us to love one another and care for the stranger. So for the next 3 weeks, Rick and I were enveloped in this love of the Nasser family and met the whole extended family and got to witness my daughter and her 5 Palestinian siblings hang out together and love each other. So for me, Lent is a season of looking back at all the love that we can share with people along the way. And it's a season to reflect on the ways that, yes, we are deeply human and imperfect. But if we step back and think about all the ways that we experience love every day, we can see that love is everywhere we are. And there's stories of love everywhere, and they transform all of us. Anna has never been the same since she came back from that trip because part of her heart will always be there. Those are her people, right? Those are her people. But Rick and I were forever transformed, and we have never been the same since we went there because we witnessed a group of people who welcomed my daughter, the stranger, into their home. So may this season of Lent be a season of love. May we all open our eyes and see the ways that people show up for us. And may we be people that see stories of love and our stories of love for other people. Amen.
Thank you for listening to this worship podcast of St. Andrew Lutheran Church. We hope that this recording provides you with a moment of God's grace wherever this finds you. Any contribution you make to St. Andrew will bolster our ministry and outreach, including our podcasting directly to you. You can do so online. Thank you for joining us for this podcast, and I wish you every blessing from Christ today.